Hello, HFMA, and welcome if you are listening to this in the future. My name is Victoria. I am a senior client trainer here at Cvent. Today, I'm going to be going over how you all can set up a Crowd Compass mobile app to engage with your attendees on site. For our agenda today, we will be going over creating the app, managing its settings, the design elements, and the content on the app. And we will also go over how you can integrate your mobile app with the event management registration. I'll be walking you through the most basic settings, and we'll also be sure to, after the fact, provide you guys with some additional resources for your continued learning. So what I want to start off with is by showing you all what a mobile app looks like in case there's any of you that have not seen it before. All right, so here we have just an example of what a mobile app looks like. Again, I want you guys to be able to have an understanding of what it is exactly that I'm going to teach you how to build today. So at this point, an attendee would have already downloaded the event to the Attendee Hub app on their phone. Once they download that event, they'll be able to come in and start viewing the content that you have set in place for them. So I'm just going to review some of the items here. At the top of the page, if you see this little bell here, we can look at our notifications. So if you're sending out push notifications via the app, your attendees will be able to review those notifications that are being sent out at any point in time. Heading back over, at the top, you see we also have an event countdown. We're just going to generate some excitement prior to the start of the event. Typically, you're going to provide this app to your registrants ahead of time. Below that, you see we can add banners to our mobile app. You can have rotating images here. As you can see, it is very commonly used to showcase any of your sponsors. And then below that, we've got our 4 main navigation icons. So these are going to link to other content within your event. These are going to be the most important things that you find as part of your event. If we go down here to the More section, you can see you can have many other banners to direct your registrants and your attendees to other important content within your event app. Back in the event app, you can see I can also be prompted to log in to preview my day. You also have the option as the planner to have your attendees just be prompted to log in when they first download the app. When they do log in, they will be asked to enter in their first name, their last name, and the email address that they are originally registered for your event with. Once they submit that information, they'll receive a verification code either to their email address or to their mobile phone number if that was something that they entered when they registered. Once they receive that verification code and enter it in, they'll be able to log in to the mobile app where they'll then be able to see some of the locked content as well as their personal schedule. I'm not going to log in today. I'm just going to hit cancel and show you a few other things here within the app. If we scroll down, you can notice we've got some featured speakers. We've also got some featured sessions at the bottom as well as featured sponsors. So you can utilize this area to just really feature the important content you want on this homepage of your event. At the bottom, we can flip over to the schedule. In this area, you can either view your personal schedule if you're logged in, or you can also view all of the sessions that are occurring at the event at any point in time. The Profile tab at the bottom is going to house just all of the personal information and content that I've collected during the event. If you're logged in here, you'd be able to see a list of all of your one-on-one messages with other attendees at the event, any appointments you may have scheduled, any contacts that you've connected with, as well as any notes that you've taken throughout the event. So this is what the event looks like. Now that we know what we're building out, what our end goal is here, I want to head back into my account so that I can teach you then how you'll actually create your event. So the first action you'll want to take is to log into your Event Center account. So what I want to point out here is that this is a different login than the regular event management login. The login for this is going to be eventcenter.crowdcompass.com. You can see it at the top of my screen here. So again, that's eventcenter.crowdcompass.com. You'll log in using your CrowdCompass credentials. Now, once you're logged in, like I am, you'll see our app container along with any other previous events that you've created within your account. If it's your first time creating an app, you won't see any other events, so don't worry. But what we're going to do now for our first step in creating our CrowdCompass event is click on this green New Event button. Once you create or click on Create a New Event, there are going to be some required fields that you're going to need to fill in to create your event. Later on at the end of our training, we are going to review and see that there is some information that will be synced over from our event registration, but the required fields here when we first create our event are not. So I'll go ahead and start. First, I'll fill in my event name. So we're going to call this the HFMA Cvent training event. I'll then choose my start date and time and end date and time here, as well as the time zone of my event. I'm just going to leave it as is. We're going to say my event is this weekend, even though more than likely I'd be setting this up way further ahead of time, but I'm just going to leave it at that. You'd want to make sure that you do update this with the correct event date and time. Next, you're going to identify your venue name or location along with providing an address. So I'm located here in Washington, D.C. I'm just going to say that this event is going to be held at the Convention Center. So I'll call this the D.C. Convention Center. And then at the bottom, I'll enter in the address. Entering in the city, the state, and the zip code. And then finally, I can also enter in the country. Now, what you want to do here is make sure that you then click on Preview Location. This is going to update the map at the top of the screen with that address so that you can confirm that this is the actual location. It's going to automatically create a map within your mobile app that your invitees will later be able to access. As we keep scrolling, we'll also be asked to enter in a description. So a short description of what our attendees will find our event. It does not need to match your Cvent event registration description, but you can also copy and paste. You can also update this later. So if you want, you can always add just a placeholder for TBD information. Now this description box is going to create your first content page, the About the Event page. We'll learn more about content pages later in the training. So let me just update this. All right, now I've updated my description. The next thing that I need to update is the event URL. This event URL is going to be used for any attendees that are going to access the online version of your app from a desktop. So not only will you be able to create a mobile app for your attendees to download to their phones, but you can also provide them with the online event guide that can be accessed through a web browser or your desktop or the Safari version on a cell phone. That'll come in handy if an attendee's device is just unable to download the mobile app for whatever reason, or they just prefer to use a laptop instead. So I'll go ahead and update the URL here. We're just going to call this HFMA 1. Notice there are some requirements that you'll want to read about before you enter in that custom URL ending. Next, you can require an event password for your attendees to access the event. You can select to create one now, or you can create it later on when we talk about security. So we're just going to look at that in a little bit. We'll come back to it within our security settings. So now I'll go ahead and I'll click on Create Event. This next screen is just going to ask us to confirm that we do not want to copy over an event from a previously created one in our account. So something important to know is when you first create that event, when you first hit that New Event button, it does ask whether you would like to create a completely new event or whether you would like to copy over a previous event so that you can carry over the branding and the content of that previous event. So more than likely, as you guys move on with creating future events, you'll be copying them over. But for today, I'm going to insist I'm going to start with creating a blank event. So I'll go ahead and click on Get Started. Now, once inside your event, you're first taken to the event checklist. This section is going to provide you with an overall snapshot of important content sections and steps you might want to take, you want to take when you're creating your event, such as your event settings, your design, your content, as well as at the bottom, you'll see there's sections for interactive features and attendees. Now for today's training, all I'm going to be covering are event settings, design, and the content, but I'll be sure to make sure you all have instructions for managing your attendees once you launch your mobile app. Now, at the bottom of this checklist, we are going to find the options to preview our event as well as publish our event. We're definitely not going to publish yet. We haven't set up any of our settings, but if we look at the preview event area, notice it's going to provide me with instructions on how I can actually preview my event, because remember, my event is not published yet. So that means I cannot actually find it within the mobile app yet. What you can do is you'll still download that event hub as an app, and then there's this little area where you can log in as a planner for the system to recognize that you're a planner, and it'll allow you to just see the real-time changes you're making in the device while it's in preview mode. So I'll show you that in a second. Again, we've got our publish event button here. It'll come into play after we've completely built out our event and we want to start publishing it and sending it out to our registrant. Now that is going to be our last and final step once you've actually finalized your mobile app. So we're just going to stay away from that button now. Again, before we move on, I do want to show you how to log in to preview your event. So I'm just going to switch my screens here. All right, when you're in the Attendee Hub and you're in this event search area, the Attendee Hub is going to be the app that you'll download to your phone. You can just find that in the Apple Store or the Android Store for apps. So once you download that to your phone, much like your attendees will need to download it. If you want to preview what your event is looking like as the event planner, we can log in by clicking on this little person with the keys. And then we'll click on Event Planner Login. You'll choose your data center. So I believe most of you are the US data center. So I'll go ahead and click US data center. And notice it's then going to take me to that Event Planner Login area, similar to what you find on the Crowd Compass login. So here you'll use those same credentials. You'll log in. The system will recognize that you're an event planner, and it's going to show you all of the apps that you're working on, regardless of if they're published, so that you can see what your changes are starting to look like. So now that we have created the initial steps of our event and know how we can log in to the Crowd Compass Events Hub to preview our event. Let's go ahead and start setting up the event. So the first requirement before we publish our event is going to be to have our event settings in place. So I'll go ahead and click on Edit Settings. Once I do that, notice I can also find all of my settings and all of those checklist areas over on the left-hand menu. So just something for you all to remember. All right, the first thing that I see here is my privacy area. This is where you're going to choose what your attendees' experience will be like when they access your event. You can either have an open event or a password for protected event. So if I don't create a password here, it's going to be an open event. So what that means is that this event will be visible just in the event directory in that Hub app. So anybody can go in and search for my event and download it. So there you would just say, all right, attendees, you can download the Crowd Compass Attendee Hub. In the event search directory, you'll search for the event title and then you'll just download the event. If you add a password, so we say create event password, we can add an extra password, not an extra password, we can add a password for extra security. So when you add a password, let's just say I wanted to just call the password HFMA1. When you add a password, notice I then have two sub options. I can either do a password protected event or I can hide an event. So a password protected event means that after your attendees download the event to their mobile app, they'll then be prompted to enter in the event password in order to actually access the content within that event. Notice for this one that your event will still be visible in the event directory. It will just require that password to be entered before accessing the content. The second option here, which is hide the event. If you hide an event, you're going to remove the event from the event directory, and your attendees are only going to be able to find and download that event by searching with the specific password in that event search list. So if I were to go back to my app, I would have to enter in the password in the search bar, and only that way could I actually access my event. So typically you're going to hide the event when it's an internal event that you do not want to be accessible or viewable within the event directory, and that you're going to require your attendees to know the exact password to in order to download it. I'm actually going to just leave this as is. I'm going to actually remove the event password. Sorry, I want it to just be an open event that anybody can download to their Crowd Compass app. Next, we have to choose our account type. So we're going to select how our attendees will log in to their profiles to network within the app or to view any lockdown content. You can allow attendees to either sign up and create their profile within the app. This setting will allow your event to be open to the public, and there is no limitation as to who is able to create profiles within the app. Or you can make your event invite only. An invite only event is only going to allow attendees to log into their profiles if they've registered for the event in your Cvent event, or if they've been preloaded into the attendee list within the event center by you or one of your event planners. I would like to note that when you're integrating your Cvent event registration site to a Crowd Compass mobile app, it is highly recommended for you to select invite only type to ensure that only your attendees that have registered or have been added to the invited attendee list are able to successfully log into the app. That's going to ensure that your attendees are getting logged into the correct profiles and will have access to the schedule and personal information that was provided during your registration. Taking it a step further, as you note here at the top, you can also require login for the entire event. Within this setting, regardless of the account type, your attendees will be required to successfully log in to their attendee profile before they can download, open, or interact with the event. We're going to keep this as sign up to just keep it simple for our training today, which means that anyone will be able to log in to our event. Next, we want to talk about the verification code expiration. Remember that when attendees are going to log into their profile, they're then going to enter the email address that they registered with to receive the verification code. The verification code is that 6-digit code. Now, as a planner, you have the option to select how long that verification code is valid before it does expire. The last area here in our privacy settings are our attendee profile settings. The attendee profile setting is going to allow you to determine the default setting for all of your attendee profiles within the app. A visible profile allows attendees to display on the attendee list and allows other attendees to see their name, title, company, and bio. A hidden profile, which is the default setting, is going to hide the attendee's profile from the attendee list and cannot be found by other attendees until that attendee switches the setting and allows themselves to be visible. So I do want to note that once an attendee logs into their profile, they do have full control over whether they want that profile to be visible to other attendees. I'll go ahead and update my event to update any changes that I have made within those settings. All right, so next we're going to go to the social sharing area under our event settings. So first we'll select our sharing type. So here we'll see 3 options that will select how we would like our attendees to share content via the app. The full sharing option is going to allow our attendees to post in the activity feed. That activity feed holds our event feed and our social wall gallery. This full sharing option will also allow our attendees to share any app content externally to other social media platforms and via email. The activity feed is kind of like your Facebook or social media feeds that you guys log into and see, where attendees are going to share pictures and content. If you're concerned about any event-related content being shared externally, you can also limit the setting by enabling in-app sharing only. This would only allow attendees to share the event content within the event feed. Now, lastly, if you don't want to allow any kind of sharing at all, you can switch this over to the no sharing to ensure your attendees will not have the option to share any content on the activity feed. Perhaps you want that activity feed to only be for content that you share as the planner. So I'm going to allow full sharing of my event content. Next, we have our activity feed and social share settings. In this section, you can require your attendees to log in before they can see posts and confirm if comments will be allowed on posts, as well as designate an internal hashtag for your event. So maybe you don't want just anybody who downloads the app to be able to see the activity feed. You can require a login. I'll go ahead and update my event again here. Now let's scroll down over on the left, still in event settings, to our attendee options. First, we've got our profile setup wizard. So what this is going to do is that after an attendee logs into the app, it'll walk them through creating their profile and adding additional information that it might have not synced over from registration. So during this wizard, your attendees might also have the ability to connect their profiles to social media accounts. Then we have our attendee sorting and display options. So how do you want to sort your attendee list? Next, we've got attendee search settings. So how are you going to allow your attendees to search for other people? You have 2 options. They can either browse and search, which means that they can view the full attendee list as well as search for specific people, or you can make it search only so that they have to know who they're specifically searching for in order to find that other attendee's profile. Next, we've got some session settings. You can adjust the settings for each session page with things like disabling session rating or disabling session check-in on the mobile app. We've then got some appointment settings. So by default, your attendees can make appointments with other attendees within the app, like meeting up for breakfast or coffee. So you can disable that feature if you don't want them to be able to make appointments with each other. You can disable attendee messaging if you don't want them to be able to send one-on-one messages to each other. And then you've got some verification code settings if you want them to get sent to both email and text or just email. So I'll go ahead and update this. Before I do that, I do want to talk about the My Badge area. So this creates a QR code specific to each attendee within the mobile app, and it's intended for use if you are utilizing lead capture or if you're going to check people in at the event through the mobile app instead of using a physical name badge. I don't plan to do either of those things at my event, so I'm going to disable it, and then I'll update my event again. And we'll continue to head down into the compliance tab. In this tab, you're going to see the option to create a custom privacy policy, create your terms of use, and add in a do not sell my personal information button to comply with the California Consumer Privacy Act. When you add these sections to the mobile app, they are going to be placed at the bottom of the login page. Note that if you don't add in your own custom privacy policy, Cvent's default policy is going to be displayed instead. If you add in custom terms of use, the attendee will be required to review and accept those terms of use before they're able to actually log into the app. I do want to note you are required to update this page before you publish the event. One thing to note with that is that once your event does get published, you no longer have access to add, edit, or remove anything from this page. So just make sure that you make the updates prior to launching. All right, so now we've reviewed the event settings. Let's go ahead and jump into our design section. So I'll go back up. We're going to click on the design section. I'm going to start by just jumping down within the sub-menus of the design area and into my home page settings. This is where we're going to choose the settings for our event level in our app. Now, there are 3 options to choose for the layout of our event. We can do navigation icons, we can do the dynamic event guide layout, or the activity feed layout. Today, we are going to be focusing on the most popular and versatile option, the dynamic event guide, but you can read descriptions of the other type of settings here. You can also just flip between all of them and preview your mobile app if you want to know which one you prefer. But again, this is our most commonly used one and our most versatile, which will allow you to show more content within that initial home screen. So I'll update my event on that. Please note that, like the privacy settings with the Consumer Privacy Act and your policies, this area can also not be changed once you actually launch your event. Let's continue in our design section and jump up to the event icons. This is where we're going to add our icon, which helps our attendee identify from the directory of the app, our event. So when they search for our event in the app, like you see here, they're going to see this event icon. So typically, you're probably going to want it to be like your event logo, but you do want to keep it simple. Let's go ahead and I'll upload the image. There is our icon. Notice that under each of the images you upload, you do get the required file size for that icon to work. Let's go down then to our splash screen. The splash screen is going to be the graphic that will show just for a few seconds while the event is downloading all of the content onto the device. This can be used to display event graphics, logos, or even highlight a sponsor for your event. Now notice, again, there are a few different size requirements. You want to make sure that you update the same image in different sizes so that it does adjust to the different devices that might be viewing it. So I'm just going to upload my mobile device splash screen. Notice that, again, each of them have their own specific screen dimensions, and they've all also got the safety margin. You want to make sure that all of the content that you want to be visible is going to fit within that safety margin. So always take a look over on the right-hand side to see how that splash screen is updating. Again, I'm not going to update these other two just for the sake of time, but note you will need to update and comply with the pixel size requirement for each of these different devices. Let's go on to our banners. This is our last graphic that we'll want to make sure we update. These banners are going to rotate at the top of our event. They're going to be used to showcase things like your event name and location, or even highlight your sponsors. Now, banners are optional while you're building out your event. They are also going to be the only graphic that can be added or removed post-launch. So the other two graphics we reviewed, you cannot edit those after you launch. The banners are going to be the only ones that you can edit if you want to be constantly updating them, maybe with different sponsors. Your banners are also going to be able to be linked to other content in the app. So let's say you're showcasing a sponsor from your banner. Your attendees will be able to click on that banner image and be taken and directed to the sponsor page. You can also link them to an external URL. So I'll go ahead and click on New Banner. I'm going to add in a sponsor banner here, so I'll just name it Sponsor. I'll choose my file. Notice, again, the file formats are below. And you can also add whether you want to link it to app content or to a web URL, as well as the duration of the banner. You'll also notice here when I'm adding some content that there is a group access feature. Groups are going to enable you to limit what certain groups of people can actually see on the app. Typically, the different groups are going to be equal to your registration types because they'll sync over from event registration. Now, we're not going to be going over this in detail for this training, but I will make sure, again, that you're provided with more info about groups. Again, they're just a way for you to limit what different groups of people can see within the app. So I'll create this first banner. And now that our graphics have been uploaded, we'll want to focus on customizing our theme and the coloring of our mobile app. So I'm going to go to the theme and icon pack. Here you'll choose what colors you'd like throughout the event, as well as the look and feel of the icon. So notice I can determine first my color scheme, and then I can select what my icons are going to look like within the app. Now these are pre-made themes, but note that after you select these themes, you can have them match your own specific branding and enter in your own color value. So right now we're just going to pick a theme to start us off with, and then I'll show you how you can customize. Typically, I just like to recommend using this snow theme. It's simple. It has just some solid whites and gray. So I'll select the snow theme. And then I'm going to select my icon pack. So I'm going to just select the tinted icon pack. Remember, we want to make sure to save our theming option. But now we want to customize it because the gray and white don't necessarily match the HFMA branding, or if it was your own event, whatever branding it is that you wanted to have for the event. So if we go down below theme and icon pack, we can click on custom colors. So in this section, we can adjust the primary header bar. We can adjust, the primary colors, the header bar colors, as well as our background colors, and then the text. So I'm going to go ahead and update some values here. If you know your hex values, you can enter hex codes or RBG codes, or you can just use the color picker. Now I know my values, so I'm going to go ahead and enter these in. Know as my updates are appearing in real time over on the right-hand side. And I'll just make my text white. Actually, no, we're going to make it dark blue, so I'll enter in the hex values here too. It is going to provide a warning if it doesn't meet accessibility guidelines. Typically, you want these colors to highly contrast, so I would suggest probably a black on here. I'm just going to leave it as is for right now, but I do want you all to note here that it is typically going to ask you to really just contrast your coloring. So let me just try another color here. There we go, that looks a little bit darker. You can update the header bar colors as well and just continue to make any updates to your theme. That's all the updates that I'm going to make for today, but you can see what my event kind of looks like. I would probably want to just update the background color as well. I'm just going to do that quickly by copying and pasting. All right, so that looks good to me. Let's go to the next design area, which is our navigation icon. Oh, make sure you save. I almost forgot, so save your colors. Make sure you always scroll down to the bottom. All right, so navigation icon are how your attendees are going to navigate in the event to access the different content you have in your event. So remember that you've got the 4 navigation icons up at the top that stay static, as well as all of the other navigation icons if you click on more. So here is the default list that's created within each of the events. You can click and drag and drop them to reorder them. You can also remove any that you do not want to display within your event. And at the bottom, you can also add in navigation icons if you want to create other links to other content on your mobile app. Now below navigation icons, you also have the ability to customize your emails. Now I'm going to skip over this area because typically what you want to do is use the event registration site and integrate it with your mobile app. So when you do that, you're able to just utilize the emails within the event registration site to send out invitations and instructions to download the app. So we're going to skip over this part because we're going to assume that you guys are going to use the event registration sites and sync those and utilize the emails within the registration site. So now that we've reviewed all of our event settings and design, let's go ahead and move into our content section. Moving into the content section, this is where we're going to upload all of our content that we would like to be available within our app. What we're going to do though, is we're going to turn on the integration after we review a few other things. And once we turn on that integration, all of this data, so our sessions, our speakers, and our exhibitors are going to just sync over from our event website within the event management platform. So I don't need to add it in twice. It is all just going to sync over. If you do happen to not utilize the integration because you're just creating a mobile app, note that within each of these areas, you can manually create the content as well as import it. But we're going to integrate it, so we're going to move into talking about the integration in just a few minutes. First, I want to talk about the next feature, which is map. So if you remember, my city map was created when I entered in my event location and when I created the event. You can see here that we can add in additional geolocations. Geolocations are something you can use if you're trying to identify local attractions within the map, like local restaurants or other buildings that your registrants might need to navigate to for different parts of your event. You can add in those geolocations to the event map. Now, what I really want to talk about here is our interactive map. So I'm going to just go back to maps here. You can create additional maps to just highlight other areas in your event that people need to get directions to or know where to locate. So what I want to do is add in my floor map. I'm going to add in the floor map of my venue. When I add in the floor map, I can then create areas in that floor map and map them to my different sessions or my different exhibitors. So that way, if someone looks at my floor map and they click into those certain areas, they'll know who is located there. So if I click on New Map, I'm going to name this floor plan. And then I'm going to upload a file of my floor plan. So I'll choose my file. Here's my floor plan. I'll select it. And then we're going to create map. Once we create a map, we're then going to define the area. So if I click on define areas of the map, notice it's going to open up my floor plan image. And then I can add in certain areas. So let's say that this was one of my rooms. I'll highlight this entire area. What highlighting this area means is that if somebody looks and pulls up my floor plan and they hover over this area, it's going to take up, or anywhere where they click within this square will be associated to this area. So I'll highlight this area, and then I'll give the area a name. So we're going to call this room 101. Once I've saved the name, notice I can then link it to an organization that has been added into my event or to a session. Now, I haven't synced my integration yet, so none of this information has pulled over yet. What can happen, though, is that these can automatically be mapped when your event syncs over based on whatever location you add to your session within the event management area. So something that you want to do when you define these areas is make sure that they match specifically and match letter for letter with the names of the locations that you add in under event registration. Once you do that, it'll make it a lot easier for you to come in and map the different defined areas. So I'm just going to save this area for now. I can come back to it and link it to specific sessions later. So I'll save the area. And the last thing I'll say here with defining our areas is going to be that you want to make sure you do avoid transparent backgrounds for your floor plans that you're uploading. If you happen to upload a floor plan with a transparent background, it is going to appear black in the app, so just something for you guys to be aware of. Let's close out of our map now. The last section here before we go and turn on our integration is going to be to discuss our content pages. So I'm going to head down to pages. Content pages are going to be any other information that you want to add to the app, like Wi-Fi information, dress code, any other app help information. Now, there is a page in here that's created by default, and that is the About page. And remember, that's going to be pulling in your event description. You can create additional pages by clicking New Page. So let's just say I want to have a Wi-Fi information page. I'll click New Page. We'll call it Wi-Fi Info. Oops, there we go. And then I'll scroll down. You can upload images that are associated and documents, but I'm just going to create the page here. Now, once I create that page, I'm not done here. In order for someone to view a page, it does need to be placed behind a navigation icon to show within the app. So let's go ahead and do that second step together. I'm going to go back to design, and then I'm going to go to my navigation icon. On here, I'm going to scroll down, and we're going to add a navigation icon. Now here we have a few different options when you add navigation icons. You can do a top level menu, which means that this icon is going to allow registrants to just see additional menu options within an icon, such as having just a sponsors icon, and then from that sponsors icon, they have 3 options to select: bronze, silver, or gold sponsors, and then after those options, they'll then be taken to the actual sponsor pages. You can also have a filtered list, which means that attendees are going to look at a list of data behind an icon, such as a list of speakers or a list of all of the content pages. You can have a detail page where your attendees can just go directly to a specific session, a speaker, or another individual page within your event. That's what we're going to do here to direct them to the Wi-Fi page. But the last option is that you can have icons go directly to a web URL. So I'll go ahead and link to a detail page. We're going to call this navigation icon Wi-Fi. And then the category that we want to choose is the page category. But notice I can link to org, I can link to sessions, speakers, maps, or specific locations. I'll go ahead and select page. Then we're going to select the Wi-Fi info page. And then we're going to click on create. Notice here, once I created, there is still a question mark behind this icon. Remember that you need to make sure to assign an image to this icon in order for it to show in the app. So to assign an image, we'll go ahead and click on the question mark, and notice that we can select from the different icons. So this one makes sense for Wi-Fi. You can also upload your own custom icon. So I'm going to select this one for Wi-Fi page. And now that I've added in the icon and the image, my Wi-Fi page will be accessible on the mobile app. All right, so now we've added in all the necessary content and all the necessary design and settings for our event. I'm ready to now go back to my event management event and sync the two. So I'm going to go to my event account. So remember, app.cvent.com, log into your event management account, and then find your registration event. So here I've already found my registration event. I've already clicked into that event. I want to continue. I don't want to be logged out. Let me go ahead and just log in again here. All right, my apologies. I'm all logged in, so let me click on my event registration. And then from here, where we're going to go is to event details. And then under the general column, you'll go to push API integration. So now we're here. The integration that we want to take a look at is the Crowd Compass integration. So I'll go ahead and click on the Crowd Compass integration. And in this basic settings tab, what we're going to do is link our Crowd Compass event, but also determine what objects from our event registration we actually want to sync over to our mobile app. So I'll go ahead and click on Edit. First thing I want to do is look at the event guide and link it to my Crowd Compass event. So I'll go ahead and click on the ellipsis. Notice here, I'm looking at my Crowd Compass events. I don't have a lot of them, so this is pretty simple for me to select it. But when you do have a lot of different events and you have events with similar names, you can utilize this field called Event OID to search for your specific event. Now, where are you going to find the event OID within the Crowd Compass Event Center? It's pretty simple. Let me show you. I'm going to go back to my Crowd Compass Event Center. Up at the top, this URL that you're seeing here, notice that it contains a series of letters and numbers. Actually, I guess I should click on it. There we go. Notice it contains a series of letters and numbers after it says event. That's your event OID for your app. You can copy that. You can take it back to the event center, and you can search by that event OID to make sure you're looking at your specific event. Once you do that, you'll go ahead and select the Crowd Compass event you want to connect to. I'll select it. And then what I'm going to do is choose what object I want to sync. So here, notice I can sync to attendees, or I can sync my attendees, my attendee custom fields. I can sync my sessions. I can sync over session enrollment. So what that means is that, do you want Crowd Compass to also enforce your session enrollment rules, such as the advanced rules or such as any capacities that you've set in your event? We can also sync our speakers, and we can also sync over groups. Remember, groups, if we say yes, are going to allow us to sync over our registration types and create them as groups within our mobile app. So I'll go ahead and say yes to all of that. I want all of it to sync over. And then I'll go ahead and save. Now, before I actually turn on the integration, note that I can also check my Sessions tab. In the Sessions tab, you're going to see all of the sessions that you created within your event registration. If you click Edit on here, you can pick and choose what sessions you actually want to sync over to the mobile app if there are any that, for whatever reason, you do not want to sync over. I want to sync them all over, so I'm just going to hit Cancel. And now my next step is going to be to click on Validate. You should receive a green confirmation message letting you know that your account has passed validation. Now, once you've gotten that confirmation, you can then close out here. Don't close out. Go back. You can then click on Sync with Crowd Compass. So I'll go ahead and click Sync with Crowd Compass. It's going to ask me for my sync method. Your options include insert new records and update existing ones. That is our default. That is our recommended option because it means that if you enter new records into Cvent or update existing records, it's going to sync into Crowd Compass. So once you're ready, you confirm those settings. We'll click OK. You'll then see a green bar here at the top of the page indicating that your event is syncing. And so notice the Sync with Crowd Compass button is now grayed out. What that means is that our sync is not yet complete. So you must wait until it has finished before you can run that sync again. Now, please note that this is a live sync. So any changes that need to be made to the synced objects should be done in the Cvent event registration area and not in the event center. So for example, if I need to make an update to my session title after the sync, remember, I want to make sure I go here to event details and sessions and update it within the event management tool, and then just sync my content again. If I make the change instead in the event center, you could possibly have your work overwritten if you ever run a sync again. So now that we have our sync, our integration turned on, our information is going to start to flow over. So I'm going to go back to my Crowd Compass event. I'm going to do a quick little refresh. And notice that now if I click on content, my sessions that were previously emptied have now synced over from my event registration. My speakers have also synced over. And if I had already a live registration, so if I had registrants within my event, which you typically will by the time you're syncing this content over, it's going to bring your attendees over into this attendees area. Now, we typically like to give a sync anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour to just really ensure that everything has fully pushed over. As a big reminder, once the integration is on, all updates to sync content should be made within the Cvent event management tool. Any changes that you make to sync content within the event center will be overwritten the next time you run that integration. So now that we've made all of our changes, let's just take one last look at our event app. So let me pull up our app again. All right, so if I was a registrant, I would first download the Attendee Hub. And then I would search for the event. So if I can remember what I named my event, I think it was HFMA Cvent training. So I'll go ahead and search for that. Perhaps that wasn't it. Give me a second, guys. I am totally blanking on what I named my event. So let's go back to the event center. And we're going to look at our event overview here. HFMA Cvent training is what I had named it. And I am not teaching you the right way because remember, I have not launched my event, so that's the reason I cannot find it. So just remember when I told you how you can preview your event, I'm going to show you how to do that in action. I'll download the Attendee Hub. Remember, I have not launched my Crowd Compass event, so I need to log in as the planner to preview it. So I'll click on this little key here. We're going to do Event Planner Login, US Data Center, and then I'm going to enter in my credentials. So bear with me as I enter those in. All right, I'm all logged in as the event planner. So if I go to all events, I'll give it a second to refresh here. Now I'll go ahead and search for that event again, now that I'm logged in as the planner. HFMA Cvent training. Let's try that again. There we go. So now we can see here's the HFMA Cvent training. So I can then download the event. This is similar to what your attendees would have to do. They'll download the event. The only difference here is that your attendees would not have to have logged in as the event planner. So then you saw my splash screen, which just shows up for a few seconds prior to the download of the event. I can be prompted to log in using my profile information, first name, last name, and email address that I registered for. Or since my event is open, I can click on this X sign and just look at the unlocked content. So now you can see here my 4 main icons. You can see my updated theme. You can see my sponsor banner. If I click on more, we can see all of my pages that I added in. If I scroll down at the bottom here is that Wi-Fi page, which I didn't add any information, so it's blank. But you can see all of my event data here. So that's all I have for you guys. We've learned at this point how you can create your events, how you can add content to it, how you can design it, and then more importantly, as we just saw, how you can log in to the Events app as the planner to view any of the events that you're working on. Now, once you guys finish up adding all of the content, remember that you would want to then publish your event. Before you do that, just make sure that you take a look at the interactive features that you can set up and that your attendees have all been integrated, but that is going to be information that I'll send over to you guys in addition to this training so that you guys can understand how you'll do all of those items. So that wraps it up for me. That is the mobile application setup. Again, I'll be making sure you guys receive information on how to manage your attendees, as well as some of the interactive that you see here, interactive features that you see here. So thank you guys so much for listening to this. Hopefully everything is nice and well in the future whenever you listen to this. And that's it, so have a good one.